Distinguished guests, participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for coming to the 22nd International Conference on Linguistics, Literature and Culture. On behalf of the AAB College and the English faculty in particular, I would like to thank Ms. Drita Kadriu, Head of the Department on Higher Education in the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology of Kosovo, for being present today with us and honoring this conference. Special thanks go to our partners, the University of Shkodër, Luigj Gurakuqi, University of Durrës, Aleksandër Moisiu, University of Southeast Europe in Macedonia, and their industrious academic staff. Their participation and presentation of papers will help this conference become even more stimulating and challenging. I would also like to thank all my colleagues in this college for their help during this time in order for this conference to happen. And last but not least, I would like to also thank all the students who are with us today. This second international conference on language, literature and culture will focus on a number of disciplines. It will focus on linguistics, literature and intercultural studies, but not as the only disciplines, as there will also be topics on translation and methodology as important parts of the whole picture. As such, linguists and researchers will not present only their studies and research findings, but will also exchange their academic experiences in these disciplines, as well as establish networks for future academic collaborations and projects. In an intellectual setting as this one, in which diversity of approach and opinion is highly valued, our Faculty of English Language is determined to offer to this community of scholars an interesting experience during this day. Therefore, on behalf of the academic staff of our faculty, I hope you will have a fruitful and enjoyable day. Thank you. And now I will give the floor to the Vice Rector of the AAB College, Professor Hasan Saliu.
Faleminderit profesoresh. Nderuar profesoresh Drita Kadriu, drejtoresh e arsimit të lartë pranë Ministrisë së Arsimit, të nderuar profesor të AB-s, të nderuara media, të dashur student, zonja dhe zotrinj. Është kënaqësi e madhe për mua që t'ju dëshiroj mirëseardhje në konferencën e dytë për kulturë, letërsi dhe gjuhësi që organizon Departamenti i Anglishtes. Të nderuar pranishëm, më lejoni që në mënyrë të veçantë t'u dëshiroj mirëseardhje miqve tanë nga Universiteti i Durrësit, nga Universiteti i Shkodrës dhe nga Universiteti i Evropës Juglindore, njëherësh t'i falenderoj për bashkëpunimin e tyre të frutshëm në organizimin e kësaj konference shkencore. Zonja dhe zotrinj, Kolegji AB është investimi më i madh i arsimit të lartë në sektorin jo publik në Kosovë, i cili zhvillon aktivitetin arsimor të shkencor që nga viti 2002 është i shtrirë në 3 qendra në Kosovë, kampusi në Prishtinë, në Ferizaj dhe në Gjakov, i pajisur me ambiente moderne për mësimdhënie dhe mësimdhënie kreative dhe me teknologji bashkëkohore. AB 4 herë radhazi me mjaft sukses ka kaluar në procesin e vlerësimit të akreditimit nga ekspert ndërkombëtar, duke ofruar programe studimi në nivelin bachelor dhe master. Nga viti 2010, AB u antarësua si antare e rregullt e Magna Carta Universitatum, duke siguruar në këtë mënyrë njohjen e vlerave universitare dhe duke zgjeruar mundësinë e ndërtimit të marrëdhënieve të forta bashkëpunimi me më shumë se 750 universitete nënshkruese të këtij dokumenti. Të nderuar miq, AB krahas infrastrukturës moderne që ka, numrin e madh të studentëve, stafit të kualifikuar akademik, një tjetër anë e fortë që ka është kërkimi shkencor. Në kuadër të AB-s funksionojnë disa qendra kërkimore shkencore si ajo për zhvillim dhe prognozë ekonomike, qendra për hulumtimin në drejtësi, kriminalistikë dhe siguri, qendra për hulumtimin e opinionit, qendra për hulumtime kulturore gjuhësore, qendra për hulumtimin në sport si dhe qendra kulturore. Deri më tani, AAD ka organizuar një numër të madh konferencash nga fusha të ndryshme studimi, si konferencat në fushën e komunikimeve dhe studimeve mediatike, drejtësi, psikologji, ekonomi, për çështjet sociale, lingvistike e tjerë. Këto konferenca janë organizuar në AAD me partnerë të ndryshëm rajonal dhe ndërkombëtar, si me Universitetin e Tiranës, Elbasanit, Sarajevës, Primorskës të Slovenisë, Bedër, Universitetin e Studi di Firenze, IPAC School e Parisit, École Supérieure de Journalisme e Parisit, ndërsa në qershor gjithashtu një panel shkencori është rezervuar edhe me Universitetin e Studi di Milano. Edhe sfera e votimeve është një anë tjetër e forte e Universitetit AAD. Përveç revistës Shkencore Ndërkombëtare, që botohet tashmë 90, publikimit të një game të gjerë librash studimor nga fusha të ndryshme, këto ditë vazhdon të jetë i hapur konkursi për sponsorizimin e librit krijues dhe atij shkencor. Zonja dhe zotëri, një konferencë shkencore shënon dobiprurjen e saj kur ajo arrin ose të jap një përgjigje për enigmën shoqërore, apo kur gjetje dhe përfundimet e saj gjejnë zbatim apo merren parasysh nga aktorë shoqëror dhe studiues të fushës. Sot ju keni rastin që gjithashtu të jepni kontributin tuaj dobiprurës për shoqërinë, në këtë rast për shoqërinë mbarshqiptare, me që edhe organizohet nga 4 partnerë të cilët shtrihen në këto zona. Prandaj, më lejoni që edhe një herë t'ju uroj punë të mbarë kësaj konference, ndërsa mysafyrëve dhe ndjekësve t'u dëshiroj qëndrim të këndshëm. Urime dhe suksese. Faleminderit.
Faleminderit profesor. Do të ftoj tani edhe zonjën Drita Kadriu të marrë fjalën.
Falemnderit dekane Lunji, të nderuar rektor, përfaqësues të Universitetit të Shkodrës, Durrësit, Universitetit të Tetovës, të nderuar student, profesor, dashamirë të hulumtimit dhe shkencës. Në emër të Ministrisë së Arsimit, Shkencës dhe Teknologjisë dhe në emrin tim, është kënaqësi t'u përcjelli urimet më të përzemërta në rastin e organizimit të konferencës. Shpresoj që kjo konferencë do të ketë traditë dhe duke formuar traditë, do të organizohet vit pas viti për arsye të nevojave të mëdha që ka gjeografia shqiptare. Roli i konferencave është i shumëfisht, si për student, ashtu edhe për stafet akademike, duke qenë se besoj që nevojat për zhvillimin e shkallësive për hulumtime shkencore janë shumë të mëdha dhe përmes konferencave studentët kanë përfitime të shumëfishta, sepse i zhvillojnë shkallësi dhe njëkohësisht përgatiten për avancimet e tyre akademike. Gjithashtu konferencat kanë rol shumë specifike dhe për stafet akademike, me qenë se në gjeografinë shqiptare flitet dhe debatohet me të madhe për nivelin e punimeve shkencore, ndikimin e tyre që kanë në shoqëri, andaj roli konferencave të tilla, siç është kjo, janë shumë të rëndësishme për ngritjen e të menduarit dhe zhvillimin e kapaciteteve në hulumtime shkencore. Në kuadër të kësaj më lejoni që t'i them disa fjali, disa qëndrime të cilat edhe unë në fushën e kërkimeve të mia kam arrit të ndërtoj konceptet rreth lidhjes termeve të reja në shkencë dhe në fushën e edukimit posaçërisht, të menduarit kritik, zhvillimit të menduarit kritik, si dhe roli i njohjes së teknologjisë së informacionit. Pas luftës në këtë sferën e globalizimit edhe Kosova është ndikuar shumë, edhe pse vend i vogël, por gjithashtu edhe gjeografia jonë shqiptare. Prandaj depërtimi i fjalëve të huaja, mobilitetet e stafeve akademike, studentëve, tregut lirë, kanë ndiku që edhe fusha e edukimit të preket shumë nga ndikimi i gjuhëve të huaja në tekst të veçantë i gjuhës angleze. Sot anglicizmat i gjejmë në të gjitha format e mundshme, si të përshtatura, të përkthyera, të papërkthyera, të përdorura ashtu siç janë, dhe nevoja për trajtimin e tyre sigurisht është shumë e rëndësishme. Standardet e gjuhëve të huaja shtetet i kanë zhvillu si standarde evropiane dhe besoj që të gjitha posaçërisht Kosova duhet t'i adaptojë në kurrikulat e veta këto standarde në mënyrë që të vlerësuarit e njohjeve të nxënësve dhe studentëve për gjuhë të huaja të jetë e barabartë me të gjitha shtetet të tjera. Këtu kemi një ngjecje në zhvillim, posaçërisht e fusha e njohjes së gjuhëve të huaja, gjuhës angleze si gjuhë më e madhe, por edhe njohjen e përdorimit të teknologjisë e informimit që është shumë ngushtë e lidhur. Të dy këto elemente na çojnë në drejtimin e njohjes dhe të kuptuarit e zhvillimit të mendimit kritik, që është domosdoshmë kohës, për shkak se studentët na janë gjeneratat që kanë lindur në këtë shekull dhe nevojat e mëdha për zhvillimin e të menduarit në shoqërinë tonë shqiptare, gjithandaj gjeografisë, janë shumë të mëdha. Konceptimi dhe ndërtimi i një forme të menduarit bashkëkohor është koha e fundit që institucionet arsimore bashkë me hartuesit e politikave ti orientojnë, për shkak se tani më nevojat për zhvillim ndryshojnë shumë nga nevojat dhe historia jonë kombëtare që e kemi pas një histori bukur të vështirë dhe të dhimbshme. Krejt në fund, besoj që kjo konferencë do të ketë jetë të gjatë, aq jetë të gjatë sa kanë gjuhët. Andaj ju dëshiroj shumë sukses dhe rezultate, si dhe rekomandimet të cilat do t'i hyjnë në interes jo vetëm kolegjit tuaj, jo vetëm studiuesve të këtij konference, por me tekst të veçantë të shoqërisë dhe hartuesve të politikave. Presim rekomandime të mira nga të gjithë studiuesit, si dhe nga studentët që me rekomandimet e tyre ta plotësojnë atë kornizën e shprehjes së nevojave që kanë për avancimin e njohjeve dhe dijeve. Gëzuar urime, ju falenderoj.
Falenderojmë drejtoreshën dhe njëkohësisht edhe Ministrinë e Arsimit, Shkencës dhe Teknologjisë për përkrahjen që ja jep gjithkohës Kolegjit atë. Now, let me give you further information regarding this conference before I call this conference open. The plenary session will be held at this theater. After the plenary session, the separate sessions will be held on the third floor. And after the sessions, lunch will be served for participants only in the canteen ground floor. If you have any other question, please feel free to contact any of our staff. I now call this conference open and invite our speakers to take their seats. Professor Bujar Hoxha, Professor Natalina Hoti, Professor Xhalit Rexhaj, and Professor Pirotanko. And then the first speaker, Professor Bujar Hoxha, to take the floor.
Një herë të njohtar, pa pasaj natyrisht që punimin e lexoj në gjuhën angleze, jam profesor Gurakuqi nga Universiteti Evropës Juglindore, në Tetov dhe në Shkup në Maqedoni. Punoj në departamentin e shkencave të komunikimit. My topic today is some semiotic relations of the main characters in Shakespeare's Othello. Love and hatred, honesty and jealousy have always represented universal themes in Shakespeare. My aim in this paper shall be to raise significant scholarly discussions in relation to the characters of Othello and Iago in Shakespeare's tragedy. The focus shall be on the semiotic relations, according to Antiger, Julie and Greimas, which further develop themselves into passions. Deducing a passion taxonomy in semiotics means providing for the transformation of meaning in concrete actors' actions, which would, in this case, intend empiric results of passions such as honesty versus dishonesty and love versus jealousy. If the issue is intended in its semiotic comprehension, then such gained passions would belong to the semiotics of passion as an intersubjective soul of interhuman communication. To my opinion, in conclusion, the semiotics of passion, as provided by Greimas and Fontanier, can provide for such mentioned meaningful units as a result. So treating a theatrical work of art out of the semiotic perspective entails in itself its double discourse, or by other words, such a work of art can either be read as a text or be seen as performed by actors in scene. As otherwise obvious, both sort of considering it include core semiotic processes. My intention in this paper is to present some of the performed actions which can either be seen in the text given by the author himself or can be exposed to an audience, such as is the case when a play is exposed to a performance in the scene. Naturally, a question emerges. What are these sorts of actions at this instance? How can they be exposed to a semiotic representational methodology? If one considers these questions generally, then it should be understandable that they should include a wider range of scientific discussions, which would in turn comprise a cohesiveness of treating an artistic work in general. However, in the instance of the present text, I shall attempt at analyzing human characters and their actions, so as to perform a semiotics of actions as exposed in Greimas and Fontanier. If methods are scientifically justified in the mentioned fashion, then one should conclude that besides a basic semiotic function, one should also reflect on the multitude of meanings that can emerge as a result, thus contributing as well to an epistemological comprehension of various semiotic conditions still to be elaborated. Relations and correlations, as generally known, among other issues, also represent core semiotic concepts. The method I have chosen to elaborate this paper, as I shall attempt to show, belongs to the structural and the post-structural approaches to semiotics. In terms of artistic creativities, however, as I would like to emphasize, such sort of analysis has been intended by the Russian formalists. The intention was to make a clear-cut distinction between form and context, story and discourse, in an attempt to be able to distinguish narration components, which also differing from artistic context, could also be applied in other social or realistically lived contexts. Thus, besides, like we noted, demonstrating a basic semiotic function, which can also be exemplified through linguistically based semiotics, narrative units enabled the narrative structures, which were able to show a multitude of meanings components, an element that is specific to elaborating its artistic context. It is, however, worth mentioning that comprehending such authors as Shakespeare is requires in itself deducing such complex messages as, for instance, metaphoric expressivities are. It is for such and similar reasons that the terms like modalization and aspectualization, such as explicated in Greimas and Fontanier, are justifiable within an epistemological comprehension of the problematics, at least if seen by the eyes of a semiotician. It is therefore worth noting that Greimas and Fontanier, besides establishing relations as we pointed out, would assist us in determining the dominancy and non-dominancy of certain characters' attitudes in the story narrated, so that passions emerge as a result. This, to my opinion, should refer to the inexactitude of messages transmission if one takes the communicative level as a starting point, so that metaphoric expressivities used in a tragedy emerge as a result, based, of course, on the general flow of the narration used in Shakespeare's Othello. Now some practical matters on Othello. After presenting only some of the theoretical postulates which, as we said, attempt at disclosing determined actions semiotically relevant in the tragedy, let us emphasize some of the points which shall contribute to the methodological solution of the problematics. If one establishes a structural dimension of analysis, or one would belong to the structural approach to semiotics, then the following has to be taken into account. The establishing of the dichotomy between form and content, establishing or determining the main relevant characters of the story, narrated or named as actants according to Gray Mass, allowing such characters to overcome the initially established dichotomies, and intend them in the shape of semiotic systems, ready for their mutual relations, and finally, performing of the transformation process as a key concept towards a surface structure. In order to perform all such mentioned procedures in the tragedy of Othello, some of the main context lines need to be explicated. Being seemingly an excellent warrior, Othello devotes his life to battles, thus being convinced that finally shall obtain a victory. Throughout the story narrated, his relation with his wife Desdemona change. Naturally, this is due to his naivete in terms of the relationships with other protagonists in the story. After being provoked by Cassio, whom we shall name a helper in the Graymassian sense of the word, Othello gets caught in a trap by Iago's action. One should note, in addition, that Iago is the modus vivendi of the play. As a matter of fact, as it is obvious, jealousy is the first trigger, an important matter in the beginning, which then brings about to the catastrophe and tragic events of the play. How would one explain this in the semiotic sense of the word? Out of a created relation, during the flow of events, it becomes clear that Desdemona and Othello are in a relation of disjunction according to Gray Mass. It means, out of a beloved woman to him as an honest warrior, the feeling of love has been transformed into hatred, a fact which emerges out of his honesty in inverted commas. It should also be noted that the word honest in the tragedy has become a part of discussions among literary critics. Iago, as I said, is the one who tricks other main protagonists of the play, finds himself in a relation of disjunction with Othello, on the one hand, and on the other, a relation of conjunction with Cassio. Iago succeeds at finding a proof for his jealousy, or as explained in the play, Othello's jealousy, the handkerchief. Out of the such relations among characters, the sense of sensitivity is noticed. All such relations become passionate towards the tragic events of the play. First, because of the contradictory established relation between Othello and Desdemona. Second, because of the seemingly excellent relation between Iago and Othello. And third, because of the false proof aimed at documenting a passion of jealousy. Conclusion. Shakespeare's Othello shows to us that human relations can be spoiled because of a single matter and or dishonest relationship, so as to bring about jealousy, a passion which is crucial to the tragedy. It becomes a passion as the state of affairs, the hierarchical crucial establishment of Othello warriors, friends, etc., gets transformed into a state of feelings. It means, instead of a collaborator, a fellow warrior, Iago becomes his enemy. We name a state of feelings according to Gray Mass and Fontanier, such a state which has transformed so as to make visible passions as taxonomic units. Greed, jealousy, hatred, etc., are the reasons for Desdemona's becoming a victim. Iago, on the other hand, the one who triggers all tragic events in the story, survives until the end of the tragedy. And what's worse, lets Othello know that he is the one who caused the events. If the semiotic analysis continues in the mentioned fashion, then it is to conclude that deducing a semanticity out of a given form provides us with many content aspects of whichever artistic expression, thus justifying the content aspects beside the formal one. Second, the passions deduced not only contribute to semantics as a final result, but also justify the omnipresence of the semiotic method. Should you have any questions, please, you are welcome. Thank you very much.
Can I? It's more comment. It's more a comment, not a question.
Okay.
But in the beginning, thank you very much for this very well presentation.
Thank you very much.
Excellent presentation, and we have now a clear picture about Othello and others. But in the beginning, you have mentioned just love and jealousy
Yes.
that contradict each other. I think that this is how it is set there. It's very okay, but I think that it should be hated versus hatred, and or jealousy that comes out from the hatred. That means because sometimes jealousy is a sign of a love.
Of course.
That's what I would like to add. Just nothing else.
Well, you are perfectly right, and this, of course, will be included in my final representation because, according to Aldiger Julien Greimas, du sens, or meaning, one of the main world establishers of modern semiotics, who declared that the subject is also highly important besides the objects, as it was previously established in semiology, not in semiotics, which has a difference by now, since semiotics is a science of the cognitive interpretation of meaning. This goes as a process. So, love and hatred emerge finally as final semantic result. And here we conclude that the semantics, the science of meaning, is not a part of linguistics, but it comes from the linguistics as a procedure which helps us towards what we call taxonomic units. So I have tried to follow these two scholars, Greimas and Fontanier, which is not the only analysis, of Othello, but passions are a result. Passions are the meaning, as a matter of fact, of what calls relations between Othello and Iago in the first place.
Thank you, Professor Hoxha. I think that I would like to invite now Professor Natalina to come.
Kërkoj ndjesë ndaj të gjithë anglisht folësve, por unë do flas në gjuhën shqipe. Tema e kumtesës sime është globalizimi gjuhësor dhe edukimi ndërkulturor. Klima e përgjithshme në çdo fushë të jetës karakterizohet nga globalizimi, i cili ka prekur ndjeshëm secilën gjuhë. Përse dhe si mund të flitet për globalizim gjuhësor? Në komunikimin global, çdo realitet krahasohet me një tjetër, jo vetëm në terma ekonomik, por përfshirës për gjithë qenjën njerëzore. Ndërveprimi politiko-ekonomik mes shteteve po nacon gjithnjë e më shumë drejt një rrafshimi të identiteteve kombëtare, kulturore, madje edhe gjuhësore. Gjithçka shihet dhe vihet në shërbim të tregut të përbashkët. Për globalizim gjuhësor nënkuptojmë një fenomen që po sjell dal nga dal anullimin dhe dallimin kulturor dhe gjuhësor të kombeve. Një studiues italian, filozof, shkrimtar, përkthyes, flet për globalizimin si në terma malli. Çfarë do të thotë? Gjithçka është rektuar në mall, madje edhe mesazhet me të cilat komunikojmë. Efektet e globalizimit shtrihen pra jo vetëm në nivelin ekonomik, por potësojnë edhe komunikimin, kulturën, gjuhën e çdo kombi. Globalizimi ka bërë që teknologjitë e reja të informacionit dhe komunikimit të zhvillohen me shumë shpejtësi. Dhe këtu kemi një shembull të përbashkët, zhvillimi i gjuhës së informatikës. Nëse për disa aspekte globalizimi mund të konsiderohet si një fenomen pozitiv ose i nevojshëm për njeriu dhe shoqërinë, për disa të tjera paraqet efekte krejtësisht negative. Në vitet e fundit flitet shumë për globalizim kulturash, për fshat global. Po a mund të mos të flitet edhe për një njësim kulturor dhe gjuhësor? Me idenë dhe synimin në një Evropë të bashkuar, është provuar të njësohen gjuhët e vendeve pjesëmarrëse, ose më saktë të zgjidhen njëra, që duhet ishte më kryesorja. Në vitin 1984, Orwell provoi të fliste për një gjuhë të vetme dhe të paraqiste karakteristikat e kësaj gjuhe, që do ishte ajo e përbashkëta, la newspeak. Kjo gjuhë do të kishte 3 karakteristika. Të kishte fjalë të përdorimit të përbashkët, fjalë të krijuara për një gjuhë dhe qëllime të veçanta politike, dhe të kishte një terminologji tekniko-shkencore. Duket shumë qartë varfëria e kësaj gjuhe. Kjo gjuhë është dhe mbetet një utopi. Do ishte vetëm një gjuhë teknike, e rrafshët, një gjuhë ideologjike madje, një gjuhë përjashtuese. Me lejoni të citoj edhe një shkrimtar të famshëm italian, Giacomo Leopardi, që në vitet 1800 flet për larmin e gjuhëve dhe bën një kritik shumë të rreptë kur flet për një gjuhë të vetme. Leopardi e konsideron këtë gjuhë si një gjuhë sklave, një gjuhë të varfër, të mbyllur, monotone. Një gjuhë që është e paaftë të shpreh të gjitha bukuritë që ka në vetvete një gjuhë, një kulturë. Është e varfër në imagjinat, madje pa jetë, një gjuhë e vdekur, kështu e quajnë. Një gjuhë që e përkufizon ndoshta mund të flitet nga të gjithë, mund të shkruhet, por mbetet gjithnjë një gjuhë e vdekur. Me fjalë të tjera mund të themi që përdorimi një gjuhe të vetme do të bënte gjithçka të rrafshët, deri dhe komunikimin dhe marrëdhënien ndërpersonale. Fenomeni i globalizimit ka ndikuar shumë edhe në kulturat e vendeve që janë përfshirë. Ka ndikuar madje edhe në mendimin në përgjithësi. Në aspektin gjuhësor mund të flitet për përdorimin gjithnjë e më të vogël të disa gjuhëve. Globalizimi sjell edhe pavarësi shoqërore. Sjell përzierje. Muret ndarëse mes dy kulturash, popujsh dhe gjuhësh fillojnë të bien në masë në të cilin kultivohet një dialog i hapur dhe i ndërsjellë. Por të hysh në dialog nuk kupton pranimin e tjetrit dhe asaj që është ndryshe. Do të thotë të dish të qëndrosh në heshtje përballë takimit me risin e tjetrit. Mund ta konsiderojmë fenomenin e globalizimit mjaft kompleks. Dhe mund edhe ta krahasojmë, më lejoni krahasimin, me imazhin e një vorbulle, që nëse të kushton dhe të merr me vete, është shumë e vështirë të mos përfshihesh. Në këtë vorbull globalizimi, në të cilin gjenden shoqëritë e sotme, është i pakshmangshëm konflikti gjuhësor dhe kulturor. Shumë herë ndodhin keqkuptime, keqinterpretime, por është i nevojshëm një edukim ndërkulturor. Ky proces, që ka përfshirë shumë faktorë, siç është familja, shkolla, shoqëria, nuk kupton fillimin e ndryshimit të një formamentis tashmë të konsoliduar. Dhe globalizimi ka përfshirë 3 elementë bazë të një kulture, të një kombi: gjuhën, kulturën dhe përkatësinë. I dim shumë mirë karakteristikat e këtyre 3 elementeve, por mbi të gjitha dua të ndalem tek përkatësia. Koncepti i përkatësisë është i lidhur ngushtë si me gjuhën e një populli, por edhe me kulturën e tij. Ti përkatësh një gjuhë dhe kulture të veçantë, do të thotë të identifikohesh me të. Nuk mund të konceptohet një individ pa kulturë, pasi mungesa e identitetit kulturor për njeriu çon në orientim. Dua të flas tani shkurtimisht për realitetin në Shqipëri lidhur me këtë fenomen. Mund të themi që vetëm në 20 vitet e fundit ka filluar një farë debati rreth kësaj teme dhe në vitin 2000 është ratifikuar një marrëveshje mes qeverisë shqiptare dhe UNESCO-s, pikërisht për edukimin ndërkulturor dhe edukimin për të drejtat e njeriut në Shqipëri. Objektivat kryesore ishin të kontribuonte në shtypjen e teksteve shkollore në mënyrë që të nxitej që në vitet e para të shkollës frymë e tolerancës, të futeshin këto nocione të përmasave ndërkombëtare dhe ndërkulturore në programet arsimore dhe të formoheshin mësuesit dhe personeli i domosdoshëm për këtë edukim. Por, çfarë bërem? Duke bërë një analizë të programeve të kurrikulave të universiteteve shtetërore shqiptare, më të njohura siç është ai i Tiranës, Durrësit, Shkodrës, Korçës, Elbasanit, fakulteteve të edukimit dhe fakulteteve shoqërore, vërim që në fakt nuk ka disiplina specifike në lidhje me këtë tema. Dhe jemi akoma mjaft mbrapa. Por ama globalizimi na ka përfshirë, nuk mund të mos jemi pjesë e tij. Në fakt, Lubonja në një artikull që shkruan në revistën Përpjekja flet për një lloj fenomeni imitimi. Për fakt të keq, vije të re që shumë herë shoqëria shqiptare nuk po përballet me këtë fenomen në mënyrë kritike, por thjesht si një imitim i disa aspekteve. Në këtë këndvështrim me vetëdije apo jo, edhe Shqipëria është futur në rrymën e globalizimit. Në çfarë niveli ka ndikuar globalizimi kulturor aspektin gjysor? A mund të themi se gjuha shqipe ka ruajtur në këto vitet e fundit një lloj integriteti, jo vetëm leksikor, por edhe morfosintaksor? Dhe më lejoni këtë shembull, është shumë e drejtueshme të dëgjohen disa gazetarë ose nuk po shtrihem më gjatë kur flasin ose kur paraqesin një lajm, shumica e fjalëve janë huazime. Çfarë tregon kjo gjë? Ndoshta mungon dituria e gjuhës shqipe, apo thjesht është një modë, ajo i përdorimit të huazimeve? Është gjëna, sepse gjuha shqipe është shumë e pasur. Dhe fakti që persona publik përdorin në masë shumë të gjerë një numër të konsiderueshëm huazimesh, varfëron edhe gjuhën shqipe. Jo sepse ato përfaqësojnë gjuhën shqipe ose folësit e mirëfillt, por është bërë diçka shumë e përhapur përdorimi i huazimeve në masë. Edhe i strukturave morfosintaksore gjatë përkthimeve. Dhe këtu duhet të them që mungon edhe një strukturë që të kontrollojë edhe nivelin gjuhësor edhe të përkthimeve, ndryshe nga disa shtete evropiane që këto struktura i kanë. Cilat janë sfidat e sotme në këtë fenomen dhe ndaj këtij fenomeni? Një shkrimtar tjetër italian e vë në duart e universiteteve sfidën e edukimit ndërkulturor dhe formimit të brezave të rinj, operatorëve të rinj, mësuesve të rinj, akademikëve të rinj. Pra, ja u lë këtë detyrë gjithmonë në bashkëpunim me ekspertët e fushës, me akademikët, edukatorët, dhe me mbledhjen e eksperiencës tashmë të këtyre viteve, që të bëhet një reflektim i vazhdueshëm, një reflektim kritik. Globalizimi është edhe fryt i migracionit. nuk mund të jemi indiferent ndaj bashkëveprimit dhe ndërveprimit, ndaj pranisë së kulturave të ndryshme në realitetet tona. Në këtë skenar globalizimi, cila është sfida e universiteteve? Universitetet janë të para si hapësira të punës, ose më mirë si hapësira publike, siç i konsideron Derrida. Çdo universitet sot është një vend takimi dhe mikpritje të ndryshmes. Universiteti nuk duhet të shqetësohet vetëm për numërimin e orëve akademikeve ose të krediteve formuese, por duhet të shqetësohet edhe për përgatitjen e studentëve për një vizion të hapur ndaj mikpritjes, ballafaqimit, ndërkombëtarizimit. Dhe kjo është thirrja që sot ju përket universiteteve. Gjithashtu ju përket universiteteve dhe detyra që t'ju propozojnë organeve më të larta krijimin e kurrikulave të veçanta, të programeve të studimit të veçanta që formojnë edukator në këtë fushë. Së fundi, mbetet gjithmonë diskutimi i hapur mes akademikëve. Duhet të ndihmojnë në ndërgjegjësimin e mbarshëqërisë. Nëse universitetet mbeten indiferent ndaj këtij fenomeni, çfarë mund të pritet nga shoqëria? Pra, është detyrë kryesore e tyre që të ndërgjegjësojnë mbar shoqërinë dhe të mbajnë hapur këtë reflektim dhe debat kritik. Së fundi, dhe duke përfunduar, jo vetëm Evropa, Shqipëria, por e gjithë mbar bota është futur në frymën e globalizimit. Pavarësisht nga ndikimi i tij pozitiv apo negativ, qasja me efektet e tij duhet të fillojë nga individi deri në një nivel shoqëror, kombëtar dhe ndërkombëtar. Uniformimi i gjuhës, kulturës, ekonomisë çon në rrafshimin e pasurisë së brendshme dhe të jashtme që reflektojnë kulturën, ekonominë, reflektojnë elementet kryesor të një kombi. Të qenurit ndryshe duhet të jetë një mundësi më tepër shkëmbimit të ndërsjellë, një takim që shton tolerancën mes gjuhëve, kulturave, kombeve. Në procesin shumë përfshirës të globalizimit, Shqipëria ka arritur pak e papërgatitur dhe gjendet përballë sfidës së këtij fenomeni pa një reflektim të shëndosh dhe kritik, dhe pa struktura të formuara të paktën në aspektin teorik. Në këtë kontekst bëhet e domosdoshme që universitetet të reagojnë, por edhe të hartojnë programe të reja studimi. Gjuha e re e popujve sot nuk është një gjuhë vetëm me komunikimi dhe shkëmbimi, por është zgjedhja e pranimit të dallimeve, të ndryshimeve, të risisë, të tjetrit, thjesht sepse është alter në latinisht, thjesht sepse është tjetër. Faleminderit.
Faleminderit profesoresh, mos ka dikush ndonjë pyetje, ndonjë koment?
Unë kisha thjesht vetëm një koment në lidhje me pjesën e kurrikulës që u përmend paksa në lidhje me institucionet publike. Besoj se zonja fani se po e them kështu, por ndoshta edhe informacionet duhet përditësuar paksa, sepse ka edhe ndryshime. Dhe duke qenë se ne të dy jemi pikërisht nga Shqipëria, se nga njerë duke bërë dhe nga një të zënjën si që bëjmë ne, eksportojmë pikërisht në qike dhe këtu ato grindje tona me disë publiku dhe privatet që i kemi me ligjin e rritë arsimit lartë. Marë pikërisht pak sa shkas këtu sepse kam edhe zonjën që është nga drejtoria për arsimin e lartë në Ministrinë e Kosovës, dhe për sa i përket gjuhës shqipe dhe ruajtjes së saj, meqense flas edhe nga ana e profilit të përkthimit. Nëse përpara viteve 90, kur vinte puna tek botimet që bëheshin të autorëve tuaj, të cilët jo vetëm përktheheshin, por të mos harrojnë. Në ato vite kishte një organizim të mënyrës se si do të dilte ky tekst në gjuhën shqipe. Dhe kam pasur pikërisht minimalisht 3 filtra për mënyrën se si do të dilte ky përkthim me gjithë shqipërimin e vet. Filtri i parë ishte përkthyesi, filtri i dytë ishte korrektori gjuhësor, filtri i tretë ishte pikërisht redaktimi letrar, dhe i katërti që ishte atëherë politik ishte pikërisht redaktimi politik. Heq të fundit dhe pikërisht këto të tre janë pikërisht filtrat që duhen për ruajtjen e gjuhës shqipe. Thënë kjo, mos harrojmë, këto 3 filtra kushtojnë para. Dhe marrën shkas, duke thënë pikërisht këtë fjalën e fundit, që duroj pikërisht edhe Universitetin në AB, sepse pavarësisht se është privat, por të organizosh konferenca të tilla kërkon jashtëzakonisht shumë energji, para, njerëz dhe të gjitha burimet e mundshme për të organizuar. Nuk është e lehtë. Dhe Shqipëria, qoftë edhe Kosova, duke patur pikërisht këtë lloj gjëje, fatkeqësisht, nëse italianët thonë që është në dorë të universiteteve, mos harrojmë, italianët e kanë sistemuar një herë mirë mënyrën se si financohen universitetet. Ne jo. Fatkeqësisht. Dhe po ngelen paksa të kjo pjesa e financës, sepse të gjitha proceset për ruajtjen e gjuhës shqipe dhe veçanërisht meqense përmendet Lubonjën, personalisht nuk është se këto kohë të fundit kam një simpati për të, gjithë secili ka mendimin e vet personal, por ajo që do të thosha për më tepër, nëse Franca të gjobit, nëse e flet keq frëngjishtën nëpër televizione, nga analistët, nga gazetarët, nga speakerët e vet, në Shqipëri kjo nuk është. Mjafton thjesht, keni nga profesorët Montupja, keni një shembull që në Shqipëri është thjesht vetëm 2000 lekë të vjetra, nëse emrin e një lokali e vë pikërisht me huazime. Kaq është. Prandaj, kriteret që duhen vënë për gjuhën shqipe, duam apo s'duam ne akademikët, forcën vendimarrëse e ka vullneti politik. Më falni për këtë koment.
Faleminderit. Pavarësisht aspektit ekonomik politik, jemi në një seli universitare dhe universitetet mbeten gjithmonë selia e dijes. Pavarësisht gjithçkaje, universitetet mbeten selia e dijes. Çfarë thon shkrimtarët e tjerë është një gjë, por ama nëse akademikët nuk janë ata që zgjojnë, që nxisin, që ngacmojnë, propozojnë, nga kush mund të presim? Faleminderit.
Falenderojmë të profesorët. Koment, edhe një koment.
Faleminderit. Unë po i bashkangjitëm grindjes juaj në Shqipëri atje.
Jo, nuk është krizje.
Intelektuale. Unë ju përgëzoj zonë për këtë guxim, për ngritjen e kësaj çështje aq serioze. Kjo është një epidemi që e ka kapluar hapësirën shqiptërforcën këto 20-30 vjetet e fundit, edhe shtohet përshtypja nuk ka të bëjë aq me anën financiare sa që ka të bëjë me aspektin kulturor, në anglisht attitudën e folëse. Kështu që vërtet zonë unë ju përgëzoj, sepse kjo duhet të marrë masa sa më shpejta që të implementohet një kulturë e të folurit të përdorimit të gjuhës në të gjitha instancat, jo vetëm në katedrat universitare akademike, por në të gjitha instancat që nga shkollat fillore e tutje. Është universitetet fatkeqësisht janë bërë masakruesit më të mëdhenj të gjuhës shqipe. Edhe shtohet përshtypja se nganjëherë se duke marrë huazimin e gjuhëve të huaja, dukemi si sa më elokuent, dukemi sa më madhështor, sa më të ditur, sa më konfuz. Po ju tregoj një anekdotë para shumë viteve në Kosovë, atëherë kur studesha unë, një nga profesorët tanë nderuar, Bardi Çaushi, ju do ta mbani mend, thoshte, s'kishte profesor më i zoti, më i mirë. Asgjë nuk mund ta kuptonje. Tani, kemi arë në atë stat që vërtet nuk kuptohet shumë nga ligjërimet, edhe pse ne duhet ta dimë si intelektual, ta parajojmë, ju lutem, që shkrimi i thjesht, gjuha e thjesht, përdorimi i thjesht i gjuhës, është gjuha më madhështore, gjuha më e mirë, më kompjuterore. Ju falenderoj.
Por edhe një mbështetje e fundit pikërisht. Është paksa përpara viteve 90 kjo lloj epidemie. Dhe mund të jap shembullin fare mirë pikërisht me librin kryesor që ka edhe shkrimtari Gurakuqi, Shkëlqimi dhe rënja e shokut zyra. Dhe aty keni pikërisht që vetëm për një aspekt të caktuar, një shfaqje që ndodh, nga njëra palë pikërisht këta që hiqen si intelektualet e sotëm, falni se po shpreh paksa me ironi, por edhe atëherë në ato vite ka pasur këta lloj intelektualesh që thoshin, flisnin me terma të huaja, thjesht vetëm për të dukur që ne dim gjuhë të huaja dhe jemi pikërisht një klasë tjetër më e lartë. Pastaj ishin ta të tjerë të cilët po të njëjtin fenomen e shpjegonin pikërisht në gjoja me fjalë të tapanit popullor, por që ishin më së shumti fjalë turka. Pra, edhe ne vetë, unë prandaj nuk e thash kot që të gjitha këto veprime, ngelen paksa mendimin tim, të gjitha këto veprime për sa i përket pastrimit, sistemimit dhe vendosjes së rregullave kryesore, duam apo s'duam ne. Ne akademikët mund ta ngrem zërin, po kush na dëgjon? Ne do japim thjesht vetëm informacionin. Vendimin e marrin politikanët. Ata e fatkeqësisht i kanë parat. Nëse ne do kishim, më fal, të lutem ta mbaroj. E ka me se s'bën politika dhe e di pse, sepse duhet të jetë një politikë mbarkombëtare. Nuk është thjesht vetëm për këtu në Kosovë, thjesht Akademia e Prishtinës apo të jetë Akademia e Tiranës atje. Duhen gjërat përbashkëta, një lloj siç është kjo konferencë sot.
Faleminderit. Po prandaj jemi ne këtu dhe ne insistojmë. Rregullohet.
Nuk ka vend hapësirë politikë gjeografike në Evropë.
Një pyetje pas kemani jepja.
Ku janë të dy palë, komunitete akademike dhe politikë bashkërisht.
Unë së pari kisha falenderuar për prezantimin e shkëlqyeshëm të kolegës Mersipria dhe kam një mendim ose një koment për relacionin që ekziston mes globalizmit edhe rrugës së identitetit të gjuhës shqipe. Ne duhet mos me pas dyshim. Ato që ka komunizuar në media dhe ato që ka në mënyrë përgjithshme ka marrë një njohuri, atëre globalizmi është një gjë pozitive. Mirë po, rrugja e identitetit është këtë një temë tjetër. E gjuhës shqipe nëse mirët. Unë atë që ka komunizuar nëpër media është se shtetet unitariste apo personat unitaristë apo shtetet diktatoriale nuk kanë dëshirë që të kulturat të ndërveprohen mes veti dhe t'i marrin popullatën e vet në terr ekonomik, kulturore, gjuhësore dhe çka tjetër. Pra kjo është ajo ide, ndërsa është në gjuhën vet dhe në shtetin vet që të kujdeset që në këtë interakcion me gjuhë tjera të ruaj veçorinë dhe bukurinë e një gjuhë. Edhe dashta me thonë që mendimet duhet të marrën nga komisionet e ndryshme, nga ata që kanë ndonjë hulumtim edhe domethënë ato ministri të ndryshme dhe universitetet tona e jo nga individit apo shkrimtarët e caktuar, sepse ajo mundet me qenë edhe mendim i porositur.
T'ja japim fjalën profesor Xhalit. Nuk e thash në emrin se të njohin studentët.
Do të flas për këto. I have two questions though. First, I would like Vanilla, after 20 minutes, somebody physically to stop me, because I always forget. And secondly, do we all speak English and understand English here?
I guess we do.
Good. Okay, my topic is somewhat different. It's about planning of lessons of English as a foreign language in schools of Kosovo. Why did I opt for this topic today when having these grand themes discussed before me? It is because, as I have found, this is a kind of part of a bigger research that I carried out in the last 4 years. I have found out that përpara. So I found that planning and preparation, or the lack of it, of them, are among the key elements of the bad performance of the system of education today in Kosovo, together with the issue of school principles, teaching and learning materials at school, and school textbooks. What I will be talking about today, from me, you will be hearing about lesson planning, as I said, and as part of it, about I cannot read now. Okay, we will be talking about the move between content-based and competence-based curricula. We will be talking about heavy reliance on school textbooks. We will be talking a little bit about hidden curriculum, and we will see what that is. I will be telling you about the methodology of this research, a little bit about results, and my recommendations. Briefly on all of this, since all of these are very, very important issues. I would need, can you see it now?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, good. So, I can go back. Okay. So first, let's see theory. What a lesson plan is. You will see. Personally, the first two, they are part of the literature, but personally, I don't like them. They are too rigid. They look most at the structure. They look at things which are external to the student. I better like the last one. An extremely useful guide, resource reflecting our teaching philosophy. Very important. Every teacher, when you observe their classes, have that teaching philosophy. Student population, of course, taking in consideration our students. Textbooks, it says. I would say teaching and learning material. This is what I would change in this definition. And our goals last. The most important thing of the first two is put last here, but very important, of course, learning goals, learning outcomes of the students. So this is the kind of definition of the lesson planning. Another important concept is the concept of curricula for this presentation, and you will see that in Kosovo we had a move, a kind of transition from content-based to competence-based curricula. And this is critically important. This is a long transition. It's been 7 years now, since 2010, that we are going through this transition. And you will see that the content-based curricula start from theories, concepts, ideas, organizational frameworks, all of these external to the student, to competence-based curricula, which talk about student competencies, student learning outcomes, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. So Kosovo is in a move like this, from external to student-centered instruction, learning and instruction. You see there also the concept of hidden curriculum. What is hidden curricula? It says here that hidden curricula are those aspects of schooling other than the intentional curriculum that seem to produce changes in student values, perception, and behaviors. Kind of unwanted results of our learning process of education. Unplanned, unsystematic, but huge in Kosovo. A lot of that happens in Kosovo that we do not plan. Luckily, I would say that hidden curriculum saves the day. Teachers do a lot more in their classrooms than they say in their lesson plans. Luckily, I would say. Methodology. This is relatively long. For 4 years, I have been doing this research. Questionnaires with 229 teachers. questionnaires with 159 students, over 38 classes observed, lesson plans and analyzed, teachers interviewed, focused groups, discussions with teachers and school principals. Analysis of English language school textbooks in Kosovo, and altogether this research took place over these 4 years, last years. You have this there, a lesson plan. You will see, I start now with the results. You will see that in many cases the lesson plan refers to the page on the textbook. Right? So the teacher, when the teacher plans how to implement the textbook, not how to implement curricula, not how to teach what students should know, but to teach what the author of the textbook says that the students should know. So the textbook author is now the state, writing state curricula. Another one, there is this famous, in Kosovo, is very popular, evocation, realization, reflection, right? And even this one, this structure, reflects the structure of the school, the textbook unit, in all its parts, whether introduction or implementation or the last part. Here I have learning outcomes from a number, 6 or 7 or 8 learning plans. All of them refer clearly to the school textbook. Some of them are better, still, somewhat better. Some of them are really just mere statements showing that the plan was done only for, as something to show to the school principal, not aiming at student learning. The research with teachers has also shown that it is the third highest result in frequency here, that they are mostly based, the highest after group work, I think, and mediation of teachers for learning. So textbooks are the third most important element of teachers teaching in our schools. Again, confirming that they are based heavily on school textbooks. In order to prove this and to find out what the situation is about it, I had about 6 training sessions, voluntary training sessions, with 6 groups of teachers, ranging between 10 and 20 teachers, and they were asked to tell me to do a plan, to draw learning outcomes. I would give them a textbook, a lesson there, the same lesson for all 3 groups within that session. One of them had to plan learning outcomes, set learning outcomes according to the school textbook only. Another one according to the old curricula. There was a book of the old curricula, and the other one based on the core curriculum of the new curricula of 2011. The same lesson, the same teachers of the same school. What do you think was the result? How many learning outcomes did they write, and what was the range of those learning outcomes? Those who used school textbooks, they had in average, I'm talking about 120 teachers organized in 6 classes, right? Average from school textbook, 2 to 3 learning outcomes. Average old curricula, 3 to 4 learning outcomes. Average new curricula, core curriculum, 6 to 12 learning outcomes. More important than the number is the scope. What do they cover? This is what they cover mainly according to the old curricula and to the school textbook. Sorry, this one. I remember, I understand, I implement. Through 3 lower level of the Bloom's taxonomy. What does that mean? That based on the school textbooks and the old curricula, students are taught lower level of thinking and doing skills. This is critically affecting student learning in Kosovo. And in the context of English language, implement would be building their communication skills for English language. But here it's not true. No, here is, it has to do with, I understand and I remember, it's repetition, it's structured drills, is doing the exercises in the book. So it doesn't go to, I am creative, I judge, I value, I analyze, or I implement the language for communication purposes. No, it's I know, it's I remember. So this is, it has really far-reaching consequences. Now, Bloom is not everything, as Shemi would say. Bloom's taxonomy, even the additional, the supplemented one, is not everything. There is a lot more. It's not only about knowledge and skills. It's about feelings, it's about attitudes, it's about values, it's about doing, it's about movement and everything. Where is that? It is nowhere in the lesson plans. It is nowhere in the lesson plans. So students use on all this. Tolerance, aesthetics, what is beautiful, teamwork, cooperation, collaboration, psychomotor skills. Where is that? It's nowhere. Now, if textbooks are important, let's look at what kind of textbooks do we have in Kosovo. Well, we have Headway, we have Exploring English, and we have Follow Me. To be honest, Exploring English I would immediately take out of the schools. It's too old, and it's obsolete. It's not even behaviorist. It's not even repetitious and structured drills. It has mistakes. It's not dedicated to Kosovar students. It talks about people only whose only names. You see, Hussein looks like cowboy in that book. True. Right. Headway. It is written for Arabic community, Japanese and Spanish-speaking Latin American community, not for Kosovars. You know, when you are teaching a lesson there, you need to first clarify with students who Henry VIII was, and then you go slowly towards your language unit, or you are learning language element, skill, through something which is abstract to students. So in both cases, a big mistake. Another problem, students who finish 8th grade have been learning with pre-intermediate or intermediate Exploring English. Grade 9, they go to elementary Headway. They lose 2 years. Why? Whose needs are met? Publishing houses. Publishing houses, because Headway is more expensive. Okay, very interesting, and Venera will like when I say this, that the book that was written by a Kosovar author is better than the ones that have been written abroad. Its big setback is that it doesn't have audio materials. So Follow Me is, to my thinking, is better than the other two for Kosovar students. I did another exercise. I asked teachers, these 100 and so teachers, I asked them, what does active participation mean to you? They had 20 minutes to write down how they make sure that students actively participate in learning. I didn't say in the lesson, in the class. What the results were? 96% of them think that active participation of students in learning, not only in the class, is when students in the methodology part. You know, when we implement our class, not introduction, not the reflection, but in the methodology part, when we do activities. And they think that group work and discussions and so on is active student participation. Students are nowhere. Only one of them said, no, two of them, said that active student participation means peer assessment and self-assessment, which is not our topic today. Okay, planning is our topic. Only 1% said that students are active if they participate in setting success criteria. Nobody thought that learning outcomes is important to set together with students, right? So what does that mean? It means that about 0% of them think that students are important in lesson planning, or in planning in general, or in preparation of a class. Okay? Zero preparation, zero setting the learning outcomes. Right, so mainly active participation is seen as group work, which is okay, trendy today in Kosovo. As is Headway. Most of the teachers will tell you that it's a modern book. Right, results. Different kinds of research instruments gave some results, but all of them pointing to the school textbooks. Observations, sometimes students were pushing their teachers towards doing more authentic learning, but teachers were successful in bringing them back on track. For instance, once in Exploring English, they were talking about elections in America somewhere. Husseini, who is cowboy, was talking about elections in America, and then students were saying, because at that time we were having an election campaign in Kosovo, students wanted to use future simple as if they were being candidates, but no, the teacher wouldn't allow that, had succeeded in that. There is a stark contrast between planned and implemented activities. Only 2 classes out of 33 observed had genuine plans that they really implemented. When we analyzed lesson plans, I told you that they are adapted to school textbooks, not adopted from, adapted to school textbooks for the given grade. The group discussion, I asked when we had the group discussion with teachers, and I asked them, what do the state curricula look like? What does the book look like? Because every school has at least one curricular book for a certain grade. They didn't know. They thought that they really didn't know. I'm not improvising. They were thinking that it's the textbook. Experts told us that, yes, planning is an administrative issue, just to show the school director that you have a plan. And I'm saying about 10% would meet some quality criteria. About 90% are school textbook based. Key findings: planning reserved for teachers, there is no room for students. There is little or no meaningful and genuine planning, less than 10%, as I said. Little or no preparation. Sometimes, yes. You know, the higher you go in the school system, the less of planning and genuine learning there is. So school teacher, class teachers, 1 to 5, gave the best examples, the best teaching and learning and best. They do. Now when we talk hidden curriculum, we will discuss a little bit about that. Now, rigid and dogmatic approach, this is from my PhD, I think. A rigid dogmatic approach of thinking that promotes school textbooks as the only source of truth. This is really dogmatic, and this is really worrying for me. Students are taught that they would be thinking only in a certain way as the school textbooks provide. Now we think of school textbook authors. They are maybe, in the best case, university teachers who rarely see the schools. And they now appear in the role of state curriculum authors. Yes, textbooks are equal to, identical to state curricula in 95% of cases in schools. State curricula, you don't find the books in most of the cases in schools. You know those books, you don't find the books of state curricula in schools anymore. Scope of learning is the biggest problem. Students do not learn about tolerance, group work, understanding, active listening, about attitudes, values. They learn only about how to remember, how to memorize, how to understand. The scope of learning is the biggest impact, negative impact, that this kind of approach in lesson planning has in Kosovo. And this should be probably, you will see that it is being addressed, thank God, with the new curriculum. Hidden curriculum saves the day. Teachers do more. They don't plan it, but they do more. Most of the teachers, especially in the lower grades, then less and less as they go higher, including university. But this additional benefits, complementary benefits that the students get from the teaching and learning is unsystematic. That's the biggest problem with it. So this hidden curriculum is a good thing, but it's minor and it's not systematic. Another thing that happens because of this is that when they are learning school English from the textbook, they are not doing something that English language and learning of languages and communication skills can do very easily. Learning of other subjects, other contexts, other curricular fields through communication, through English. Why not learn English, history through English, geography, mathematics even, photosynthesis, biology, and so on and so forth. Easily can be done in English language with students and achieving more impact with the same class. And this is a trend, a very strong trend in the West, in advanced education systems. My conclusions were, I have already given most of that. Teachers do not give due credit to their own work in their plans, it's true. They do more with hidden curriculum, luckily. Students miss on critical aspects of learning as a result of narrow textbook-based planning, true, both in scope and in amount. Ministry of Education invests heavily to narrow student learning. we pay 3 to 5 million, I think, in school textbooks to narrow down student learning. This is what is happening. I know that the ministry does not want to do that. Students' learning needs, competencies are not met. Competence-based curricula are more teacher-friendly. In every school that I have made the research, I have done the research, those who have started with new competence-based curricula, teachers are far more advanced, far more student-friendly, planning much better, and engaging in collaborative work much better. And this is one really fortunate development in the Kosovo system of education. What is happening in Kosovo, in most of the schools, it's only about 100 have started with new competence-based curricula, is thinking within the box and not out of the box. This is what is happening in 90% of schools and teachers. What I'm recommending is thinking out of the books. And instead of books, talking about learning technologies, that includes learning materials, teaching and learning materials. That is my... And start really implementing, roll out the national new competence-based curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Luigj. Now I will give the floor to Professor Girotan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I start, actually, on behalf of the University, UAMD, Aleksandër, Moisiu in Durrës, being as a partner in this activity, we would really like to congratulate actually the AAB University for doing all they can in order for us to have advancement in science and technology and also in culture. And I also bring the salutes of the Madam Rector in our university, which apparently coincides also with the gender equality policies that is happening actually in our countries. So I would like to congratulate both of you colleagues for doing all of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, since that the previous speakers were actually a little bit older than me, just in age, I'm actually the youngest and probably I was the most fierist. But anyhow, one of the things that we do at the Faculty of Education in Durrës, and especially the Department of Foreign Languages, is that we try to actually develop skills to give to the future teachers of the English language in order to tackle somehow, this is just still in the testing period, but to tackle somehow the problems that we just heard also in this panel. It's just a tool, it's just an approach, still under testing, understand this. So, we need to have some translation skills for the future teachers of the English language, and we have a certain experience. Now, the aim of this presentation is to provide actually some insights into translation and interpretation classes that we have in our department, and for especially future teachers. Now, the role of translation in English for specific use and also as a foreign language will continue to have always debates, okay? People will say, we accept it, we don't accept it, it's a pro and con. But anyhow, it assumes that by many teachers and linguists that translation in the classroom does not belong because it doesn't embody making full use of the target language. And also, I have to say that different studies, thank you, and also different studies are looking at translation usage in bilingual classes, okay? Having illustrated some new ideas, but always related to what? In everything, in every intervention that you need to do, you need always, just like a doctor in a theater when they are doing the surgery, you need to have the proper measure. You need to have a certain equilibrium in the intervention that you do. and also a combination of different approaches, as was put actually forward by Wessler, who is actually a, believe it or not, is a German language teacher in Japan, and through his experience actually this was distributed for all of this, and he said it's the newly coined, as always the Germans have it, functional translation method. So everything, it has a purpose and it has a function. So we make use of students' native language, okay, the students' native language to help them learn a target language in the EFL classroom. Now, these bilingual problems, they are of different natures. Some of the interventions are actually 50-50, so you do 50% of the native language and 50%, or otherwise, depending also on the level, it is up to the judgment of the teacher to do it, the measure of control. Sometimes it goes up to 90 and 10. So 90 might be, for example, when we have what is so-called, and we will see it also later, a complete immersion into the language. So we have a complete environment when we want to teach the language to the students by not using the native language. So all of the communications, it's an old method, all of the communications that you do it only in English, even though you don't understand it. It's a little bit extreme, I have to admit. And also, there are different studies, especially related to the German language, but it's found that the nature and activity of the teacher's perception how students learn were 2 to 5 important factors affecting the code switching. So also the teachers, when they do their preparations and they are prepared with all of the proper subjects in the university, meaning teaching, learning, didactics, all of these teaching-oriented subjects, these subjects need to give to them also the type of skill to identify in the auditorium, also the type of learners that they have in front of them. Sorry, technology doesn't make any advances sometimes. So is the reboot version where you actually can do what? Start again from the beginning. Let's restart where we left. So there are some approaches, as I said, related to using translation in the classroom, especially for learning a new language. And as I said, it is the bilingual immersion where you, as I said, you go completely and somehow figuratively dive into the language and don't use your native language. So you have to learn from the experience, from viewing, from touching, from all of the senses. And also you have the co-teaching. Now, co-teaching can be made possible only if you would have the opportunity in practice, given, for example, like the American Peace Corps, where they send, teachers, volunteers, in order to be present in the auditorium so they can help also the teacher and also help the students in order to listen, hear, and be corrected by a native speaker of the language. But it's not always possible, and to have a co-teacher sometimes is also financially expensive. And also we have using the bilingual text. Now, this is somehow the most effective one when it comes to our students, and we have tried this with the second level and also the high schools in Durrës, in the region. And we tried this type of activity where our students went to do their internships into these schools, and we said also to them to try these type of new methods, so what type of results would it have? And also there is the combination of approaches, the best always one, but needs always to be, you need to see always who is the most cost effective most of the times. So the use of bilingual text is that students sometimes need a crutch to support their ascendancy towards native like fluency. So they need to go slowly but steadily into learning a new language. They cannot just go in a shock therapy. Shock therapy, sometimes it works, most of the times it doesn't work. And for example, here I use some of these literary texts, and what I do to the students is that we do an exercise in translation classes where I give to them, for example, an original version of a text, and in this case we use a B2C level of English, and we also have the translation, the official translation of that version. So what I do is actually I give to them these texts, and everybody is going to translate it. I don't give them the official version. So everybody is going to translate it in order to see what is their perception of that language and of the action that is going on. This is just for a B2C level. But the other one, where you might be a little bit surprised, is actually, this is taken from a fairy tale. Okay? So, from this fairy tale, what do? We also, it comes in our life, and if you're going to be teachers, where you're going to work with children. And sometimes with children is a complete different story. Of course, you cannot ask to the children to translate the story, because they don't still have enough qualitative or even the proper formation in the standard language of their own mother tongue. But in this case, it also helps the teacher, the future teacher, so our intern and our student, in order to understand the way, how can they help the future students of their own to expand vocabulary, to understand phenomena, to understand culture. And the combination approaches is always an interesting alternative to combine some of the approaches mentioned, such as bilingual immersion and bilingual text. So some of the bilingual immersion programs in international schools, okay, have adopted this approach, and also it's been evidenced, also not by our contacts only in Albania, but we have also alumni, so graduated students, also from our master degree programs, that have emigrated and have been employed in China to learn the Chinese, the English language. Yes, there is also this opportunity if you didn't know. There's a lot of advertisements on LinkedIn about this. You might think that you're going to Canada, but somehow you end up in China. And there's also, we have previous ones, students of ours who have been actually employed also in Italy, and also a colleague of ours who left our department and went into Italy, and I just pleaded to her to try and do this type of thing in order to see the results. And we have pretty much dependently, because as I told you, the results might be different because it is the external factor, which is that of the teacher, so how the teacher judges at the lecturing hours how to approach such a method. And as I said, there are different things, but it differs also when it comes to what? When it comes to different ages. I know that most of you, and I think most of our two universities, we put more emphasis on pedagogy all the time. But there is a complete new area right now where we can be expanded also, and I hope this occasion will have us have joint efforts in this, is about having andragogical models, which means teaching the adults. There are many adults in this globalized era right now, would you believe it, also our grandparents, who want to understand even how a smartphone works. And most of the terminology that is there, it is only in English. And they say, I don't understand this. Or even they want to have a Facebook profile. Even though it is in Albanian sometimes, and I know this happens, for example, in Albania because the Albanian version of Facebook is actually a little bit more from Kosovo side when it comes to the terminology that is used. And also when it comes to the idea of using native language to translate ideas. Let's not forget, when you're learning a language, you also are learning the way how they perceive the nature and how they perceive different phenomena. And they give terminology to that. So most of the things that you're going to do is that visual, that image that is in that foreign language, somehow you're going to do a transplant operation and put it actually into the minds of the one that is learning. And some of these suggested activities, some of the exercises that we do is actually one lost in translation. Okay? Now, each of the students will receive a number from this case from me, or might be from the teacher, and all of them with even numbers, okay, they do have a different English sentence written across. The other ones have the same sentence, okay? And then we do what? We compare. So somehow we go into comparative translation and we compare what is the perception of one and the other. In order to do what? That even for our students that are going to be teachers, even for them it is a really good activity to expand their vocabulary and trying to understand how the foreign language works. And they, later examine, and when it comes to examination of the version that they have given, it is not that I'm actually putting the foot down and telling as a dictator, no, this is the only version. Never actually, even in your classes when you're going to teach, never actually do that. Okay, everybody wants to have their own opinion. And even in this, I leave it to all of them to have their own opinion and their own interpretation. That's why we're human beings. So, as conclusions, so translation should be used to foster and take advantage of students' natural ability to assimilate the L2 language, so the second language. And the information might come actually through their own language, through their own understanding and perception. And in addition, the consciousness and the ability of the students to recognize such things, it is not to be underestimated. And also, by reducing actually and doing this type of activity, it has been seen, not completely proven, because it's still yet to be proved, is that by, in this way, reduce cultural related problems. Meaning that culture stress or even culture shock, and the teachers actually increase the likelihood that students will more easily absorb the taught material, will be more curious, will be more devoted actually to that one, because they are actually learning something new that they have never ever seen or even perceived. And it is not going to be, as it was said by Professor Buyar over here very graciously, they are not going to be repetitive anymore. That is all for me, ladies and gentlemen, and if you would have any questions about it.
Thank you, Professor Piro, first of all for your presentation, and second for reminding the rest of us that we are getting old. Questions? Of course, he said, he was talking about us here. You have to ask for a mic.
From here or on the stage?
No, they can bring you a microphone.
No problem, I can on
In fact, I've got a question for Professor Javid. So, no, of course. First of all, we have been discussing a lot about curriculums, about teaching methods, and about evaluation and all these things. In fact,
you did but you did perfect research about it. And the question is, I have been probably speaking with students about teaching and about methods as well. According to you, what is the method which is implemented in our schools?
Well, methodologically, teachers are not doing so badly in Kosovo. Methodologically, they are okay, group work, discussions, and so on and so forth, but the entire perspective is wrong. It's external to the student, it's not student-centered. So somehow methods and the philosophy of teaching are at a big discrepancy in Kosovo. Methodology of teaching, group work, discussions, collaborative work, and so on and so forth, they are somehow student-centered, but then teachers have not transformed yet. Teachers are those who have all the knowledge and they just try to transfer their knowledge to students' head. When being vice versa, all knowledge is built in students' head, and it should be the student who is the subject of learning that runs the show. So to answer your question, this is a big story. To answer the question shortly, methodologically, our teachers are relatively advanced, more advanced at lower levels, and as you go higher, it tends to become more behaviorist, more academic. But the problem in Kosovo is the overall perspective of teachers. Teachers have not transformed or moved from all-knowing teacher to the facilitator of learning. And I think that the only way for this to take place is for the new philosophy of the competence-based curricula to take place and be combined with the relatively new methods. I think this would be...
Thank you, Professor. One more question.
Students have noticed the same, and they say the same things. Right. They have told us the same things.
And you have been evaluating the textbooks, which is sometimes part of our teaching as well. You told us that they use 2 or 3 kind of sets of books, and you were not satisfied with these kind of books. Do you think our teachers can use the kind of DIY method, like do it by yourself, or to bring extra material in a class in order to be a better lesson, whatever?
It's that Drita is not here from the ministry.
So what do you think we have to do as teachers?
Yeah, true, yes. We cannot blame teachers for everything, because all they get from the state is they get a textbook and the marker. Usually it's not a marker, it's a chalk. So teachers get very little. In another research, I had a kind of finding which said there is an unwritten pact between government and the teachers. Government gives teachers the textbook and nothing else, closes the door, and teachers, when they go into that classroom, they close the door and they do whatever they like. They do very little. And this is this kind of written pact. Teachers don't demand, government doesn't give, and students suffer because of that. So I wouldn't blame teachers altogether. I think that the government should give teachers a little bit more than the textbook. And my answer to that is teaching and learning materials or educational technologies in its broadest sense, including if a teacher told me 2 first years I did my photocopies myself, but then she ran out of funds. And then now she doesn't do photocopying of extra materials anymore. As simple as that. It's for the state to play its role.
Can I have a question for a professor from Durrës? Just if I have a microphone.
It's obvious that we are 2 states, but the problems in translation are neutral to both of the countries. And for sure you have come across some interesting obstacles on terminology use. And I would like to a small comment, and I would like to make a question related to whether you have thought out about standardization or the equalization of this terminology in both Albania and Kosovo, relating to some mostly used terminology, or let's say legal terminology and medical and economics and others. Have you ever thought about in your institution? And also, I would like to remind a kind of let's say, puzzle. We were puzzled when we are searching for some terminology in Albania, for instance, for whistleblower. And in Kosovo, they are using other terminology, and this is very interesting. And we didn't find anything that would be some touchable, let's say, more meaningful in Albania, but that us let's say, lobbying for using denunzus. And so, whether you have, this is just an example of thousands of examples of these things. Have you ever thought in your institution, let's say, to standardize and to come up with some kind of a solution for this, let's say, a kind of terminology that we would like to see equalized in both countries?
Well, actually, you put it really straightforward, but actually, as I would say the expression in English, you're actually barking at the wrong tree. It would be for me, if I would have a certain power, like for example, like it has the Albanological Institute of the Albanian Studies. I want to see from them a certain document or even a certain strategy or even an action plan of how they want to achieve that. Okay, I'm just a young PhD. And I have been graduated since 2014 now. And what happens in Albania is that you need to have a little bit of fame and a little bit of a name for you to be heard and your opinion to be valued. So it is not that easy. As we all know, most of the efforts that we do, it takes years to do that. My suggestion for that would be actually, as I even said in the previous comment, it needs to be a goodwill actually from both sides and to have somehow another Congress of the Albanian language as it was in 1973. That's my own opinion. We need to have that in order for all of us to be unified and furthermore to be clarified. Because it is really important, because if you're not clear in actually what you're doing and what you're saying, we all know that in translation you get lost. But we're talking the same language, and we get lost in the same language. So in order to overcome this, it is really essential, because it will help us, not only on the standardization of our own language, but it will help us also even to have further knowledges among one another. I wouldn't know, for example, what type of legends might be in the ancient Mitrovica, for example. I don't know them. I have no information about them. What type of expressions are used for that old folk legend? As far as even you, for example, you don't know about the legends and the way how it is expressed in the folk tales of Berati, where I come from. So, in order to do this, we need, this is my suggestion, and hopefully I hope it gets on YouTube and people will see it and understand it, is that we need another 1973 Congress of the Albanian language. But this Congress needs to come up with a certain result, and that result would be, so we could have an action plan and also definition from the government also. I'm still insisting on this, even though people might not agree with me, but definition from the government, what part of the GDP, of the general GDP, is going for this, because it's part of the culture. It is true, as far as I have the perception, that even in here, as long as it happens in Albania, funds for culture are always less and less. Or even when it comes sometimes for education. It is given more emphasis to projects, but these projects are just individual projects. They do not tackle the great issue. And in my opinion, I'm still insisting on this. That Congress needs to come up with an action plan, with the funding, and knowing who is doing what.
One more comment from Professor Javit and then a question from Professor Mirvan.
Very simple. I happen to have this, I just got it hot from the oven. Dictionary of Pedagogical Educational Terms by Mimosa Jokuta and Trita, who was just present, Kadriu from the ministry, and Dirida Hoti, I think. That will probably have what you were talking about, and you about the need and the fact that for the standardization of terminology in the field of education. So when you were talking about institutions, I'm usually very, very disappointed at them because I have an impression that they are living somewhere there and rarely coming down on the ground, really.
Well, when it comes to the institutions, yet again, the institutions, the institutes.
I meant
institutes in plural. Yes, okay. Albinology, the Academy of Sciences, etc. Yes, these institutions, believe it or not, they, in order for them to be active, because they don't have enough lobbying to the government when it comes to funding. And they cannot do anything if just they have the knowledge, they just have publication, and that's it. These publications, this knowledge needs to be put into action.
I have a question for Professor Piero. First of all, let me congratulate you for the presentation. The question relates on what's the benefit of translation in teaching English as a foreign language. Having in mind that you were speaking about the translation, especially having in mind that you were teaching students how to use translation in English as a foreign language. And as I understood, you were also somehow justifying the usage of L1 or native language in foreign language teaching, knowing that this is a very debatable issue, having in mind the methodologies of teaching. On one hand, we have scholars claiming, let's say, that L1 hinders the process of foreign language learning. And on the other hand, scholars claiming what you suggested, that it somehow helps the process of learning foreign language. I wanted to ask you, what are some ways that students profit by using translation in the classroom, and how do you justify using L1 in teaching English as a foreign language?
Right. Now, as I just said in my presentation, this is not a clear-cut approach. Okay, it's still ongoing, and even I, who I'm just having this idea and doing this project and this research throughout my years at the universities, I still have to see, for example, the proper, or sometimes the measure, that these translation skills need to be introduced into teaching. I think, and I believe the older generation is of my opinion, that some of the best translators that we've had in the Albanian-speaking world, they actually had better knowledge of the native language rather than they had of the foreign language that they had. Now, I'm not talking about translators because we're not going into details, we're talking just about learners here. But that, in a certain measure, judged actually by the teacher, as I told you, because it's the teacher who is going to utilize that according to the need of the student. Because there are some people, for example, who have more, auditory enhancement skills. Some other ones have more visual and spatial skills. And just in order to do that, in order to learn them better, and to, as I told you, it's just like a surgeon doing a certain transplant. And in order to be better understood, that's why we use sometimes the L1, so the first language, the native language. Just in order it is to help overcome the barrier of understanding the terminology, and furthermore, understanding actually idioms. because sometimes it's really, I know most of the students who would try and do some of the internships and teaching into classrooms, teaching idioms of English to the students, sometimes for them is really difficult, they don't understand. They need also to have the equivalent of that expression also into their own native language.
As like the pigs fly. Here we end the first session of our conference. I would like to thank all the teachers, all professors who were here and so eloquently explained everything they had to say so far. Short coffee break and then we'll continue with 3 sessions. Let me remind you, session on linguistics and literature will be held in room 302. Session on English methodology, teaching and learning, of course, room 303, and albanology, room 304. So students who are here may choose where they want to be for the next sessions, decide on what you would like to listen to. You can move from one room to another room to listen to different, let's say, presentations. And for the time being, let's have a 10-minute coffee break and then we'll get back to the sessions. 3rd floor, don't remember. Thank you.